Tigers and Gators, we've got your final score prediction. It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the best ways to help us grow is to leave your comments below. So maybe your final score prediction for LSU and Florida. I will get to that final score prediction, but we have spent so much time really over the last 2 weeks talking about what LSU doesn't do well. You have a 9-game sample size. And so what your record and what the box score and stat sheet says you are, by and large, you are. And it's not to say teams can't improve, because you can continue to improve as the season goes along. But if over 9 games you consistently see something pop up as an issue or as a positive, it's generally what you are. We know 2 things are certain. Number one, Garrett Nussmeier has had turnovers in 6 of the 9 games LSU has played this year. He is turnover prone, something we all talked about before the season started, and it has borne fruit. Another thing that we have talked plenty about, in particular over the last 2 weeks, is LSU's inability to stop a running quarterback. At this point, you are what you are. From Lenora Sellers back in week 3 when you played South Carolina, even issues against Nichols in week 2, all the way to what we've seen over the last 6 quarters with Marcel Reed and Jalen Milroe. It's what you are. But as I mentioned, the opposite is also true. When you play 9 games, the things you do well through 9 games are generally things that you're really good at. For example, LSU really good at pass protection. We know that. They're in the top 5 in the country in fewest sacks allowed, fewest tackles for loss allowed. This offensive line has been really good in pass protection. They've struggled with run blocking. Like, that also is part of the narrative. But for this game in particular, I think something on the LSU defensive side is what might tell the tale of the game. Now, of course, Garrett Nussmeier has to protect the football. But for what we know about this LSU defense and their struggles in defending a running quarterback, we also know something about this LSU defense to be true in a very positive light. And Brian Kelly talked about that.
Nobody wants to see our defense in a passing situation. This league does not like LSU's defense when it's a passing situation. We create havoc. They kind of like us when it's 2 tight ends and the quarterback's running the ball. We got to figure that out. And so, we've got to have the answers for those things, because it'd be nice if teams would drop back. It seems when they do that, we kind of get after the quarterback pretty good. We sacked the quarterback at Mississippi 8-9 times. We knocked one of the quarterbacks at A&M out of the game. We made it difficult for South Carolina to keep their quarterback in the game. We made it really difficult on Arkansas. So you can understand that this is about, coaching and understanding what the next adjustment needs to be.
Against Ole Miss, 6 sacks, 9 TFLs, 11 passes defensed. We can go back to the beginning of the season, and this is something that is factually accurate about this LSU football team as you look through 9 games. That defense gets after the passer. They are great at creating havoc. In the opener against Southern Cal, 2 sacks, 7 TFLs, 7 passes defensed. That is something from literally the first game to now, LSU has done exceptionally well. My goodness, look at what they did to Connor Wegman. I mean, it was the last moment that we saw LSU look like a dominant team. Remember, they had won 6 in a row. They had beaten Ole Miss. They had blown out Arkansas. They're up double digits on the road against Texas A&M in a battle of unbeaten teams. LSU had 4 sacks, 5 TFLs, 2 passes defensed. Marcel Reed went in, and the game changed. So Brian Kelly's right. LSU is 11th in the country in sacks. LSU averages 5.8 to be accurate, 5.8 tackles for loss per game. LSU is exceptional at creating havoc. It's the thing Blake Baker does and is known how to do throughout his career. Remember the South Carolina game? All anybody really wants to talk about that game are the penalties that negated South Carolina defensive scores. But can we look at the fact that South Carolina didn't get a stop? And oh, by the way, LSU had 5 sacks, 9 TFLs, and 2 passes defensed in that game, and an interception, and a forced fumble? Look, LSU is great at creating havoc. They'll have to do it against Florida. Now, can they? Florida is going to be without its starting right guard, Damian George. That's an Alabama transfer. He's a good player. He's a good interior player, but he is injured and is not going to be starting. So they will have a backup. Maybe a little bit of benefit there, getting pressure on the right side of the offensive line, the left side of the defensive line. Paris Shand, Savion Jones. We're looking at you here. Potentially Deshaun Womack. Florida, 38th in the country in sacks allowed, nearly 2 a game, and 75th in the country in TFLs allowed, nearly 6 per game. Did I mention LSU averages about 6 TFLs a game? Stands to reason LSU should be able to create negative plays against this Florida offense. When you look at Florida, this is an offense that has struggled, obviously without Graham Mertz, and clearly since DJ Lagway was injured against Georgia 2 weeks ago. In the 6 quarters plus, really the second half against Georgia and the entire game against Texas, with Yale walk-on transfer Aiden Warner subbing for DJ Lagway, the Gators, again, in 6 quarters, this is a game and a half plus, 439 total yards and 27 points. The bottom line is that is a Florida offense that has really struggled without DJ Lagway. Now Lagway comes back for the Gators, as he will play in the game on Saturday against LSU, but at what capacity? That's the real question. Listen, DJ Lagway against Kentucky had by far his best game. Now, we could go back to Samford in week 2, and he threw for 400 yards in that game, but I'm talking about real competition. He was 7 against Kentucky, 7 of 14 for 259, no touchdowns and a pick, but he also ran it 9 times for 46 yards. They had some big plays in the pass game. A 58-yarder, a 44-yarder, a 40-yarder, a 20-yarder. All that piled up the numbers big time for Lagway. So the 2 things that LSU defensively has done well all year, get after the passer to create havoc and cover. Now, they've struggled to tackle and to help in run fits on the back end, but their coverage with Zy Alexander and with Ashton Stamps at corner and with safety help covering, yes, they've been good at coverage when they play teams like Connor Wegman at Ole Miss, like Jackson Dart and Ole Miss. So, or I should say Connor Wegman at Texas A&M, Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. When they face those types of offenses, they've had great success. And they might face something more similar to that this weekend because of how limited we're assuming DJ Lagway will be against LSU. We focus so much on what LSU doesn't do well, and we know that. But I don't know that DJ Lagway coming off an injured hamstring is going to be 100% ready to hurt LSU with his legs for 4 quarters. We'll see if he can even make it through the 4-quarter football game. I think that's something that has to be watched. God bless him. He's trying to tough it out and go, and he's gotten treatment. He's attacked that treatment. He's ready to give it a go in a game that Florida feels like they got to get. They're trying to get the bowl eligibility, and they need 2 wins to do it. They got LSU, Ole Miss, then at Florida State. But my goodness, if DJ Lagway can't run and he's limited and he becomes a freshman quarterback trying to sit in the pocket with that pressure coming and not knowing where it's coming from because of Blake Baker, that's proof in the pudding of what they are, that advantage shifts significantly toward LSU. Now, I do also want to talk about the LSU offense against that Florida defense because injuries could play a massive role, and I'll get you that final score prediction. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, a great partner of ours here on Locked on LSU. I downloaded the Prize Picks app as we started talking about it here, and I'm going to tell you, this is so easy to use. I even get the notification every day, and when you tap on it, it'll bring you to that screen, and it'll just say more or less for that player and whatever statistic they're asking. It could not be easier to play. So you can win up to 100x your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Yo, Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy as well. So your lineup stays in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half, doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. Listen, sign up today if you haven't done it yet. It's so easy. Just download the app. Sign up today. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts selected player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. It's Prize Picks. Y'all, make sure that you check it out over at Prize Picks. I'm going to tell you what, if you haven't done it yet, I've been thrilled, having a lot of fun with Prize Picks, and highly, highly, highly encourage you to do the same thing. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We're also today brought to you by Z-Biotics. Thank you so much to so many of you that have tried Z-Biotics, and you've sent me a note, you've sent me a tweet, and you've told me how it's worked so far. Z-Biotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink, and it's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. So just remember, make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So again, for best results, make Z-Biotics pre-alcohol drink your first drink of the night. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep, and wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and to get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed by 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for 15% off. So we've talked about the LSU defense, and obviously at this point now, the LSU offense really needs to get going. And by offense get going, what we're really talking about is Garrett Nussmeier needs to protect the football. Brian Kelly seems to think his quarterback's had a pretty good week.
This has been, I've spent a lot of time with him this week. I think he's been thoughtful, intentional. He's taken leadership. I just like the way he's locked in this week. And, my experience tells me that when a quarterback is this locked in, you might want to watch the game because I think he's going to have a heck of a game.
Well, the other part of this, while I tend to agree, and we've talked about how much Florida's struggled throughout the course of this year, the other part of this is that Florida is really struggling from an injury standpoint. They're going to be without at least 8 starters for this game. And when you look at the defensive side of the ball, Florida played Texas last week without 4 defensive backs, including both starting cornerbacks, Jason Marshall and Devin Moore, and they got torched. Quinn Ewers threw for 333 and 5 touchdowns. Well, Marshall is out for the season with a shoulder injury. Moore and safety Asa Turner and cornerback Jakeem Jackson are all out against LSU. So Florida is still going to be down all 4 of those players against LSU. Because of all those injuries, their safety, Triquez Bridges, has moved from safety to corner, and it's forced sophomore Cormani McClain into a starting role. Now, you might remember Cormani McClain. He's a former 5-star who played his freshman season at Colorado and now has transferred to Florida. But again, he really hasn't been counted on at all this season, but now has had to start because of all these injuries. You're effectively playing a second-team secondary. The top 4 defensive backs are all out. And Florida's going to be down a starting linebacker who's their leading tackler. So, my goodness, if ever there was an opportunity for this LSU offense to get back on track, the only thing that could make this better is if the game was in Baton Rouge. But sometimes getting on the road and going on the road helps. LSU played really well away from home against Arkansas. They overcome a massive environment against South Carolina to rally and get that win. And look, they were up double digits midway through the third quarter against Texas A&M, handling that environment perfectly. So Florida, it's going to be sold out at the Swamp, as they announced. It's going to be a good crowd at 2:30 in the afternoon, but the best thing LSU can do is get going early offensively and take that crowd out of the game and keep them out of the game, especially if you can come up with big plays. LSU's got to get its season back on track. They got 3 games to go, and we've gone over the scenarios. If LSU wins out, if Georgia can manage to beat Tennessee on Saturday in Athens, which they're a 9.5-point favorite, and if LSU can get a smidge help, like Arkansas beating Missouri on the final playing date for that Battle Line trophy, then LSU's in Atlanta. And you play the winner of the Texas A&M game. If you manage to win that, God, how good would it be if it was a rematch against A&M? You're in the playoff. It's a long way to go. It's a month till we find out. But it's a scenario that is very possible, but it starts with winning your next 3 games. And I think it does start for LSU in Gainesville. I think it's probably a closer game than we hope, because I think the defense at LSU is susceptible to giving up big plays, and I think that will happen. And I think they will give up points. But I cannot trust a Florida defense that is down 5 starters, especially every one of your starters in the secondary, against an LSU offense that the thing they're great at is protecting the quarterback and throwing the football. So this is a matchup that heavily favors LSU. It's why the Tigers are a 4-point favorite and probably should be more. But I do think the Tigers win it. I'm picking LSU in this one, a 30-24 to go to Gainesville to get the win and get back on track and set up 2 final home games against Vandy and Oklahoma with a ton on the line. So give me the Tigers against Florida, 30-24. Okay, that'll do it for us here on today's bonus coverage of Locked on LSU. If you're new, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and be sure to let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.